South African actors are calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to sign the Performance Protection Amendment Bill into law. Actress Vatiswa Ndara penned an open letter to the Arts and Culture Minister, where she highlighted issues including exploitation, poor remuneration, intimidation, and unfair treatment. Well, Ndara joins us with Carlynn de Waal-Smith from the South African Guild of Actors and entertainment lawyer Unathi Malunga. Good evening to all of you. Thanks very much for coming through. Vatiswa Ndara, an extraordinary move. What prompted it?
I was just tired. I was tired of us letting the system drain us and accept and legitimize exploitation. So it was time for somebody to say something, and that person just had to be me. And I was willing to take that step. It wasn't easy. I mean, I had a whole lot of conversations, even with my brother, you know, that you do know what this means. And by the time I sent the letter, I had made peace with what could come with me sending out the letter to the minister.
Well, there are reports today that Ferguson firms may just sue you. Does that bother you or worry you?
I don't know about it. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I think I'm so ready for whatever comes. I'll deal with it. I mean, no one has spoken to me officially about that, so I don't know. I suppose I'll deal with that when it happens. Yeah.
Carlynn, you, as the Guild of Actors, you've been seized with these matters for a while. I mean, recently you made representation, well, months ago, I should say, in Parliament and speaking to these issues. How widespread are the issues Vatiswa is raising, in the industry?
I think, unfortunately, Vatiswa speaks to a portion of something that is systemic. It is everywhere. It is in audiovisual, it is in theatre, it is in performers, no matter where they are, in what productions they are in. I think there's exploitation that happens, there are working conditions that are not satisfactory. There is this power struggle between, you know, the producers, the broadcasters, or the producers, the financiers, you know, and the actors are at the very kind of end of the food chain. So, you know, everything trickles down to the actor. And the weird thing for me is the actors are on screen. They're the ones who make your program. They're the ones who get the ratings, you know. So ultimately, it doesn't make sense to me that there isn't that kind of mutual respect that says you are valid to this production, and we understand that we are valid in producing it or in broadcasting it, and the people are not sitting at the same table. And I think, to a large extent, the exploitation will continue until people realize that we are all part of a very, very important value chain. But ultimately, that actors need to be able to have a voice. And the South African Guild of Actors is the only organization for actors that can speak on behalf of actors.
Unathi, and this is done mostly in the form of a contract,
yes.
You know, and I saw a lot of people raising that issue, saying, look, a contract is something entered between two parties, and it's up to the one party to accept or reject the contract.
Yes. That is true, and that reflects the reality as it is. And ultimately, it is a power play. I think she used the word power play, because if you don't have leverage to negotiate a better deal, then you are at the mercy of the other party, the other contractual party. I do think it's a systemic issue. I also think that the whole value chain of this industry needs to be looked at, because there are kinks in every point along the value chain. So yes, it is a contractual issue, and that is why I think the collective activity of a guild is where that can really shift the power balance.
But what makes these actors particularly vulnerable?
Because they don't have a voice. They don't have they don't have a voice. They know what could happen. I mean, if a producer is going to tell you that there's someone else who can take this money that you don't want, or if you can't work in this environment, there are other people who want the job, what are you going to do? So actors, I think we right down there at the bottom of the value chain. And that's why people can do as they please with us.
I picked up from what you were saying earlier that you also kind of almost feel like you were party to this exploitation, almost like you invited it, or at the very least allowed it to happen for so long.
I did for the longest time, because you are thinking, I talk of home affairs, and home affairs, I was really not that well known. And I walked away with 9,000 Rand for the entire series. And you think it's going to get better, and you keep on allowing it to happen. And so I think for me, I'm so upset with myself because I knew back then that there's something wrong with this. But I just carried on because I did not want to rock the boat.
In your engagements, Carlynn, with the industry, what have the conversations been like? Are there issues that perhaps production companies sort of raise to say, we wish we could do what you're asking us to do, but we can't for whatever reason? In fact, are those conversations even taking place? Maybe.
You know, I think the interesting thing is that in some circles there are amazing conversations that are happening. You know, through the forum of SASFED, the South African Screen Federation, you know, actors are sitting opposite producers all the time and going, you know, what is fair, what isn't fair, where are their concerns, where are their issues, where are actors' issues. And the problem, again, though, is the systemic nature of it. So, you know, producers are at the whim of either the financiers or the broadcasters. So they are also sitting within a box. So we say to them, listen here, the producers have to do A, B, and C. The difficulty is we don't know what that is and what they have available. And then they go, it's the broadcaster. The fascinating thing is we also sit at the broadcaster. So we're trying to have conversations with everybody, and the broadcaster pleads poverty. So the problem is that you have to put content on screen, and they will do it at whatever cost. And it was a number of years ago where I actually realized that the productions that were happening were X amount per minute, and 10 years later, they were half of that. But they were trying to produce the same quality programming, but for half the price. And the problem is that actors are being paid less now than what they were paid then. And also there is no kind of standard. There's no regulation in the industry. And yes, we want to self-regulate, but we want people to be able to say that these are the areas and the issues. These are the things we need to deal with. It is systemic, but it is about labor. We don't have rights. We don't fall under the Labor Relations Act. We are freelancers. We are independent contractors. We don't have rights. And unless we can sort out these issues that are so intrinsic that affect the contracts as well, and that's why we sit in this situation.
How do we know what's true, Carlynn? Because I think the good thing is that you have access to these people. How do we know they're telling us the truth? Because I speak to people from the channels, and I ask them, how is it that you keep on offering less budgets? And they say, no, that's impossible. We would never do that.
And that's the problem, is that we don't know. We don't know. And recently I was sitting with a producer negotiating, and they were like, well, this is my budget. And I was like, show me the budget. Let me see what you have available and what not. And this is one of the producers who is so hell-bent on making sure that every production is better than the next one. But they also sit going, we can't give you royalties.
Is this true even for like public entities like the SABC, for example?
Well, I think the mention of production costs being halved is true of some of the broadcasters. And I think from the producer's point of view, it is a budgetary issue, because now they've got to make the same content for less than the money. And any time we ask that something be done, for example, having safety officers on set or it becomes a budget issue.
Yeah.
So nothing then gets addressed, and this is why it has to be collectively dealt with on that level. It can no longer remain an individual contractual issue. I remember I was part of an intellectual property task team when I was at a broadcaster some years ago, and we were trying to sort out these terms of trade. But nothing happens thereafter. So we sat with producers, we sat with all the industry bodies, and we were working out terms of trade. But because there's no continuity, it's a stop-start with everybody, with government, with the broadcasters. So the people who initiated then leave and nothing gets done. And that's the state of affairs.
You have this interesting story, Vatiswa, about how you got to be part of Igazi in the first place, right? You were based in the Eastern Cape at the time. The show then did well, season 1 of Igazi, until there were these rumors of cash flow and related problems. And then all of a sudden, budgets got tighter, even S&Ts were like mega amounts of $100 or something like that. Now, I'm trying to understand here this reality, that perhaps there is a reality that we may not be appreciating, and that is the tight sport that is production companies get put in by the broadcasters and whoever else.
But that's the thing, we don't know. We don't know.
So perhaps if they were to play open cards,
Yes.
maybe you'd understand their
Exactly.
problems
That's the thing.
even better.
There's no transparency. Fortunately, she was my agent at the time when I did season 1. And I said to her, please let's give them 2 free calls. You know, because we're so excited about this.
We're
new
in this
drama.
together.
Yes, everybody. And by season 2, I mean, the attitudes had changed, and there was just no communication from the executive producers. We didn't have the great relationship that we had like in season 1. And we don't know what caused that, because maybe we're asking for more money as a result of what we saw with season 1. Yeah.
You know, I mean, Unathi, you know, Keke Mputi, who starred in 2 Ferguson productions, also shared on Twitter her own experiences. Right? She claims when she fell pregnant, the production company said she would still have her job. But as she was about to go away, she claims that she was told her contract had come to an end long before the scheduled time. Can these production companies get away with stuff like that? Because what you say or promise should be binding. I mean, should be an agreement entered into between the parties.
Yes, but if the other party has no power, they know that you're not going to challenge that decision. They know you're not going to go to a lawyer, you're not going to take it to court. So it is the wild, wild west. And this is why I'm saying every part of the value chain, like for instance, I render professional services to the industry. If there was free legal advice available to the sector, subsidized maybe by government or something like that, a resource for the sector, then we wouldn't be having these problems, because then people would be getting legal advice. So these are the kind of issues that make actors vulnerable.
I think also, you know, Saga, for example, because we're membership driven, we do have part of that money does go to legal resource. The difficulty, though, is what legal resource, because we don't fall under labour. So we can't take people to the CCMA, which are the mechanisms that are there for that.
Does the Performance Protection Amendment Bill deal with the issues we're talking about here tonight?
I don't think it specifically deals with the contractual issues. I think it deals with the rights. So actors will be able to earn remuneration for the usage of their work on all the platforms, whether it be broadcast or internet. You know, it's in line with, I think Florence was saying in the previous segment, with the Beijing Treaty. But more so, these issues are contractual issues. These issues are also around the status of the actor being a freelancer versus the actor being an employee. If we cannot decide and determine what the terms are under which actors are contracted. If you are an employee, things work in one way. If you are an independent business, it works another way. But we're kind of stuck in this grey area in the middle, and nobody is coming on board to say, how do we address this? How do we say actors need to be seen as this? They are professionals. They've studied. They do this for a living. This isn't something that they do because they wake up and they go, I want to be an actor. Actors are drawn to this, so we need to be able to protect them and find where they fit. Unless we have that, contracts really are going to be one-sided.
Well, I mean, how do other jurisdictions deal with these sorts of issues? I saw, in the tweets and the conversations that people have been having on social media, there are those unfair comparisons that don't help the conversation. Because if you say an actor in the United States gets so much for a season, it's an unfair comparison. That's not going to take our conversations anywhere, unfortunately. But jurisdictions that have been more successful than us in dealing with these sorts of issues, what are the sort of things that they do? Or
the first thing is there has been a history of struggle in setting up in all those guilds. So in the US, there's SAG, and in Britain, there's been a history of setting these up, a history of collective action. Secondly, what the guilds do there is that they set minimum floors. So they say, this is the minimum wage that you can earn on a commercial, earn on a soapy, earn on a... Because you must remember, there are also different kinds of content, right? And if you remember, these are the... And then the producers sign up to be members. They cannot use non-union members. And that's the crux.
And they have that collective bargaining to be able to do that. And I think the interesting thing also that you mentioned here is, the minimum rate guideline. And what's fascinating is that, as the industry trying to self-regulate, agents and they're basically the only line of defense that actors have in any kind of way is in negotiating, correct. And they could be for or they could be against you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The fascinating thing for me, though, is in that SAGA has been looking at trying to set some kind of minimums so that you're not having these immoral offers that are going out to actors. And then we are faced with a competition commission that we can for setting minimum rates because we are not protected. So SAGA may not publish the rates as minimums because of anti-competitive behavior. We are stuck. Wherever we turn to with trying to self-regulate, we are stuck.
Can we not look at broadcasters then to solve the problem in the meantime, whilst nothing big can happen? Broadcasters must oversee to it that we've given you this, do this and follow through. Let's see that because they all claim that we look out for the interests of everybody on set. What is it that they do actually to prove that?
Broadcasters can, and again, it's a value chain issue because you can't look at the leg between the producer and the actor without looking at the broadcaster, the producer, right? So broadcasters can actually require the chain of title documentation. They can require to see the actor contract that producer has signed. They can do that. They can make sure that the budget that the producer has given them for a particular line item, like a lead actor, ties up. There is a certain amount of monitoring that they can do.
But they're not doing it, obviously. No. So is it because there's perhaps, shall we call it, an incestuous relationship between your broadcasters and production houses? It works for them. It might not work for actors, but the two of them may be happy that things are working out between them.
I think the problem is that, certain broadcasters do care and certain broadcasters don't. I mean, if you go to the SABC, they don't have any archive of anybody's contracts. If you go and try and claim for your repeat fees, you have to basically give them the contract. Surely they should have it in their archive because they're the ones responsible to have to pay repeat fees. They don't have any of that documentation. So it is systemic. Yeah. There's nobody in the value chain that is taking responsibility So when it comes to the actor, we just have to get on with it. We have to be on set, pitch up. I mean, there's no regulation when it comes to what happens with sexual harassment. Saga's been vocal with SWIFT, the Sisters Working in Film and Television, around making sure that this gets addressed. But you look at the conditions on set even now. Odwa Shweni.
And nobody goes to set to monitor.
No.
There's no one who says, let me go there and tick the boxes.
Look,
That's the danger.
The National Film and Video Foundation, I do know, are setting up a monitoring arm where they are going to be visiting sets. But of course, they're not going to be there all the time, every day, you know, but it's random checks, spots, making sure that conditions are okay. What we have discussed with SWIFT is a procedure, because when you as an actor, something happens to you on set, who do you go to report to? So that also needs to be sorted out in terms of sexual harassment.
Let's just have a look at some of the tweets that have come from some of your colleagues, starting with Florence Masebe, who says, we need more fed-up voices to call out the mess in the South African television industry. Thank you, Vatiswa Ndara, for your bravery. We have to stand with you, all of us. Ramichwene says that here lie the remains of Vatiswa Ndara's acting career that died on the 7th of October 2019. Good luck at the Vatican as you pursue a career in engineering, teaching, or whatever. It's been real, boo. And a bit of humor there. And a lot of people, I think, misinterpreted what she was trying to say. But Silo Magega Ngube says, Vatiswa, your pain reverberates in a debilitating throb in my soul. This is an echo of 1,000 muted voices. I just pray and hope that it doesn't end as yet another agonized howl in the wilderness. I wish you could commend you for brave. This is when you can no longer suffer in silence. Your heart beats in mine. Katleho Danke says, there are many truths that still need to surface about the blatant exploitation of artists in this country and the conditions under which they work. We assume South Africa is Hollywood. It is not. Artist stories will come out one by one. It is time. Only some, of course, of the people who have numerous South Africans and actors who have responded to your article. Where to from here?
We just carry on with the dialogue. And I mean, the reason that I extended this letter to the minister is that I think he has the power to make something happen. You know, I could have gone to Saga to say to the guys, look, what can we do? But it needed someone who is in a position of power to look at it and say, okay, I think this is what needs to be done. And I think the conversation that is happening on social media will lead to that.
Nata?
We also need to get all the relevant government departments in the room. So, for example, Department of Labour must be involved, SARS must be involved for the freelance exemption. All the relevant departments, we need to actually sit down and work this out. Maybe a sectorial determination, we'd spoken about that earlier. But these are long-standing issues. These are issues that have been there for a long time, and something's got to give. And well done for breaking the silence.
Thank you.
I think the conversation does need to carry on. And the one thing I think that we're missing out on is solidarity. You know, actors, when Vatiswa puts her life on the line like she just has, then suddenly everybody talks. But for the rest, nobody stands together. And unless we stand together as actors and stand together as an industry, our voices will not continue to be heard. People will be silenced again because they want to work. They don't want to be blacklisted. They don't want to be seen as being difficult or vocal or saying things, because everybody must toe the line. So I do think that actors need to stand together, and you know, that's what Saga's about. We actors working for actors.
Well, let's hope this is the beginning of the end of exploitation of artists and in this country. Vatiswa Ndara, Carlynn de Waal-Smith and Unathi Malunga, my guests this evening. When Nightline returns, Mineral and Energy Minister Gwede Mandashe champions cleaner coal at the Windaba conference. More details when we come back.